Welcome to Barnstable Today. I'm Nick Cortez. This past week on our daily talk show, Barnstable This Morning, our guests tackled topics from cold and flu season to the grim news that $1.5 billion needs to be cut from the fiscal year 2012 state budget. We'll show you portions of those conversations in just a moment, but we begin this week's BTM Highlight Show with Dr. Patricia Grenier. On Monday, December 13th, in the wake of the resignation of Barnstable High School football coach Doug Crook, Patty spoke with us about how school administrators deal with personnel issues both in the classroom and out.
We go through a very lengthy and time-consuming process that it's very thorough, and in so doing, we always seek to get to the truth. Once you get to what you believe as the school administrator to be the truth, then comes the difficult task of making a decision of what's an appropriate consequence or not.
Speaking generally, not necessarily speaking about any specific situation, but you have let's say you have a scenario where you have someone who is a sports coach and also a teacher at the school, and something happens related to sports and not related to in the classroom. How does the decision get made as to what gets done about that in terms of whether or not that employee can continue on?
You know, that's a fabulous question, because we have teachers who serve as advisors to after-school programs, ski clubs, and travel across the country, across the world with our kids. And so if something should occur on one of those events, we actually try to separate those events, because what happens sometimes is that the staff member does not understand or fails to keep the same level of standard as classroom standard versus more casual, different standards. And so it becomes really the degree to which the events, the climate, the culture, the event, what's going on at the time, where it's occurring, what role the person is serving in, how the person has served in the multiple roles in the past. So have there been, like with student discipline, is this a first event or is this a second, third, fourth infraction kind of thing?
Okay. Every Wednesday we speak with the doctors of the Cape Cod healthcare system. Joining us this past Wednesday, December 15th, was Dr. Joel Haas, a family practitioner here in Barnstable. With cold and flu season in full swing, our discussion topic was a timely one: the facts and misconceptions about antibiotics.
When someone has an infection, it usually is either a bacterial or a viral infection. There are other types of infections, but those are by far the minority. Mm-hmm. When someone comes with a cold or something of that sort, it's usually one of the two. Antibiotics usually are reserved for those medications that are effective at killing bacteria. In other words, antibiotics don't kill viruses.
Right.
So if your infection is due to a virus, an antibiotic will not be effective.
So then if somebody comes in and they have a really bad cold or they have the flu, antibiotics are not appropriate in that situation?
That is correct. The flu is caused by the influenza virus. So an antibiotic like amoxicillin or Z-Pak or any of those stuff will be absolutely 100% ineffective for the flu.
When we talk about antibiotics, I think that the argument comes up that in a lot of cases, children especially are over-medicated and take antibiotics too often, and eventually, people say that your body can become resistant to antibiotics, and or bacteria can mutate and become more powerful, so antibiotics no longer work. Are all those valid arguments?
Absolutely. The more you use the antibiotics, the more you educate the bacteria in the community towards those antibiotics. And there are now superbugs out there that are really resistant to multiple of the many antibiotics that are available to treat common infection. And of course, as you know, if the bug is resistant to the antibiotic, treating with the antibiotic then becomes useless.
Really, I think that this probably just comes down to responsible medical practitioners using discretion and not just writing something down on the pad just to placate their patients.
Absolutely. It's actually both sides. It's the responsibility of the public to educate themselves of the appropriate use and expectations of these medications, and it's also the responsibility of the practitioner to make sure that they educate the patient, make sure to say, look, I don't think this is appropriate here. I think the harm outweighs the good.
Earlier this week, State Finance Secretary Jay Gonzalez confirmed to the press that legislators will be staring down a $2 billion budget gap for fiscal year 2012. Gonzalez said that the state can realize about $500 million in savings, leaving about $1.5 billion in cuts to be made. On Thursday, December 16th, we talked to State Representative Demetrius Atslas about the unenviable task that faces him and his colleagues in the new year.
There's going to be cuts, and we're facing with actually a $2 billion deficit, but we've seen an uptick in revenues coming into the Commonwealth by about $500 million. Mm-hmm. So we're looking to cut about $1.5 billion, and we're going to do it right across the board, which I think is appropriate. In the past, it's been a hodgepodge. It's been across the board. Then 1 year it might be we'll go after various accounts, various departments. But I think the pain has to be spread across the board, and we can't be everything to everybody. But the real kicker here is our health care costs.
Yes.
Our health care costs cannot be contained the way it is presently right now constructed. It's a $10 billion a year expenditure for health care.
So what's the plan then, Demetrius? How do you go about changing around how mass health works to the point where it can become more tenable and sustainable? Because at a cost of $10 billion or more a year, you're looking at pretty close to 50% of the state budget being spent
Absolutely.
on one program.
Absolutely. And what we have to do is we have to work with insurance companies to attract those companies that offer truly affordable, inexpensive policies. And maybe those are the policies we put them in instead of putting them into a state health care program, which is a lot more money if you look at the numbers. That's one thing. And until people start going back to work, we're going to have to pay the freight for those who are out of work. Mm-hmm. That's just a reality. There's no two ways around it.
The December 17th episode of BTM was our last Friday episode of 2010. So we took the opportunity to assess the year that was in Barnstable Recreation with Division Director Dave Curley.
Yeah, when we talk about accomplishments, I guess I'm looking at some of our enterprise operations and some of our large programs, such as maybe the golf courses, the OBF, Highness Golf Course. Those are true enterprises, much like the HYCC.
Yep.
And when we talk about Barnstable Recreation, we talk about service and we talk about the bottom line finances. And something that I'm very proud of, certainly extremely proud of the service and how people step up and we provide quality programs out there. But the bottom line in the finances, which is so important to the town, both golf courses met all of its obligations, recovered 100% of its costs, and over here at the HYCC we did the same, and we had a surplus of over $100,000 in the first year. And so those are huge accomplishments.
Absolutely.
As far as the bottom line finances. I would mention that the aquatic program, we had a great year. We had a great summer. We had some wonderful activities. And, again, we exceeded our obligations and met all of our costs. So, I don't want to forget, all our viewers and our listeners, they need to know about those finances and that we did very well this past year, Nick.
Remember, if you'd like to view any of these complete interviews, full-length episodes of Barnstable This Morning can be viewed online. You can check them out in the town's video archives at town.barnstable.ma.us. Well, that's all for now. Everybody have a great weekend. I'm Nick Cortez, and we'll see you next time on Barnstable Today.